영제 진보도들 닝미장 zon을 모놈 진보가 되었다. 바그로다 놈 잠도 실물도 도마도 제장라 기정들 내정으로 제니 정감서 저걸 되기 전에 연락마 지금 번조자라 소란데 공절 또반 보러 신지로
The supreme, profound, and sublime Dharma is difficult to meet even in a billion eons, but now I have been fortunate enough to have seen it, heard it, received it, and kept it. I vow to attain the true meaning of the Tathagata.
등흐름 정화는 먹고 바식 중화 마인진 거리 응응들 됐다고 연호 냠바노 리직 된조나쇼비 등흐름 년세반도 양들들 조퍼카나 안줄 등흐르 따처모 게마호 고라나 땀땀에 비 등흐르지 잠소 연호 냠더 쥐어게테 양 이타라라 쇼브럽샤고 잠조 정화는 데르터 츠르 짓머른 직반도 따비 양도 Ninda la muflu jabs kirano kumchuksum kona yembe jijang te kona ni te kona la timbre shajang te sum jilaba kyang tangwar mafshago nyamda ngibre shene jamjo gumu chagbab sarwana gungda shapar tarda rangla wang mechang stagder dungharjang Jan Wangjan le mandi bi tsirla tendi lakzong jombog jawo ngarjerdang Jan kyatok so bi vlongen tsar japar shago digbab jangana dingur ndar tabadang ndwe chi lagba khodo me panar digba maji le shungwa ji le ngi badang per chewa dang mashi badang mamcha badang Shiba Chidmazawa Jir Goni, Lagbar Samla, Tifshir, Dungur Mandodna, Ti Gemergawar Pong, Gu Nyamdo, Ngarsok Tov Ji, Sherjan, Shima Dambala Bato.
So let's continue with the teachings on transforming suffering and happiness into enlightenment. Previously, we've already talked about we have to accept the suffering. Can you hear me properly? Good. Previously, we've already talked about we shouldn't reject suffering. Also, when suffering is already there, not only we shouldn't reject it, we should accept it with a joyful mind. This is not easy to do. Why is that? Because as a mundane being, whenever, in fact, we encounter any suffering, we won't be happy about it. Theoretically, I think you can accept suffering, but when you face such a situation, it may be more difficult than you think. On top of that, having difficulties and sufferings, not only to accept it and ask you to cultivate the attitude of being joyful, it would be really difficult to do. So, how can we do that? The most crucial point is to practice it, is to familiarize yourself with that again and again. Especially when we practice this method or practice on bodhicitta or practice on the mind of compassion, we have to practice on it. We have to familiarize ourselves on those teachings. We don't necessarily have to enter into retreat or do it in samadhi. However, we have to practice in the way to contemplate, to repeatedly think about it, to repeatedly generate such kind of thinking in such a way. Those are all considered as practice, and slowly, in such a way, you will be able to have certain realization or inner experiences with some apparent or not so apparent ways that would take roots in your mind and will eventually grow deeper and deeper. Because many inner realizations are attained through their diligence. It doesn't come through imagination. It is not easy to attain those realizations. The previous great masters attained supreme realizations. They've given so much to attain those. Can you hear me well? Yes? In fact, this teaching is not that easy. It's not that simple. But it is not that difficult either. Because as long as you have faith, as long as you have confidence and you've put in an effort, you will definitely be able to develop such kind of mind. Because in our Buddha nature, we have this capacity and we have this seed. Therefore, in the process of your contemplation and practice, you should diligently practice. You should practice wholeheartedly, repeatedly, and with lots of determination. So try your best to efficiently let your mind gain such I'm using it as my earring, the headphone. This is quite important so that eventually you'll be able to gain this kind of inner realization in your own mind so that it will be helpful to you. Previously, we've already talked about when suffering actually happens to you, you should not reject it or keep thinking that, why me? I'm so unfortunate. Oh, poor me. Oh, poor me, poor me. If you continuously think in such a way, if you repeatedly to think in such a way, and thinking in such a way that you cannot eat anymore, cannot sleep anymore, cannot rest anymore, in that way, then I think maybe the actual thing is not the last straw that crushes you. Rather, it is your emotion that crushes you first, because your mind is weaker. In this way, living in this world, if you familiarize yourself with such kind of a weak mentality, living in this world, even the tiniest problem can be the skyrocketing problem for you, can be the world-changing problem for you, can be the world-darkening event that happens to you. So, as a Buddhist, if you cannot tame your own mind, if you cannot even control your own mind, cannot transform your own mind, then I think it is the most pitiful and the most regrettable thing ever. Therefore, when suffering is already there, do not try to forcefully stop it, because you cannot do that by force. You cannot stop suffering by force. You cannot stop problems by force, because those happens because of due to the cause of karma and affliction. It already came into fruition, and if you want to stop the fruition at the time, it's not that easy. Just as if you're already sick, there are many different causes for such kind of illness. But since you already got really sick, then at that point, whatever medicine or whatever IV drips you may get is not going to work that well, because the fruition is already there. Maybe if you would have strengthened your body beforehand, if you've taken different kinds of medications beforehand, or use such ways to protect yourself, it's probably going to be more helpful, because you will have an immune system and then it won't get sick so easily. And similarly, this kind of pattern also happens to our life as well. Some sufferings you can use different methods to work through it, and some sufferings you just have to go through it and you have to experience it, because the suffering won't disappear into space without you going through the whole course of it. Therefore, we need to not only understand it through the theory, we should also actually practice it. And in such a way, you will be able to eventually accept it and eventually even feel joyful when suffering comes. The previous masters loved this teaching, such as Atisha. He takes a disciple who has bad temper on purpose. For us, we probably just really want to get rid of those people who have that bad temper. Previous great masters went to different places that has terrible environment. For us, we will be terrified to go. Don't even mention about terrifying environment. We don't even want to go to places where people have transmissive sickness. But sometimes the great masters would go to places that would trigger their afflictions, because they want to practice chot, the cutting through, the practice of cutting through. So they would purposely go into crowds to have more afflictions. Therefore, before our practice get to such kind of strength or realization, we should first of all understand the theory, and slowly we can practice on it. At the beginning, it may be very much painful, but slowly we don't get so scared of it. Maybe you still feel a little bit upset inside, but you can still hold on there. And slowly, if you practice upon that, eventually when you feel suffering, as a practitioner would say that, oh, I'm sick today, I'm so happy about it. Someone's slandering me, criticizing me, I'm so happy about it. I got opportunity to practice now. Of course, this kind of realization is not attainable by everyone, but we should trust ourselves that whatever happens, there will be a solution, and if we can have this kind of mentality, then whatever happens, we will be able to face it. Just as it is stated in Bodhisattva Charyavatara, if we have faith and then work on it, if we have confidence and then work on it and practice along the same way, then even if you encounter the biggest problem and obstacles, it won't create any suffering. I think this is for practitioners with a really big heart. For us, we have such a fragile and such a sensitive and such narrow mind. And in such a way, whatever tiniest problem that we encounter could be a big problem, eventually bringing suffering to oneself as well as others. So we have to put the theory that we studied into our actual life, and that is practice. And you definitely need to accumulate practice into your life as well. Without accumulation, unless you're a true Buddha or Bodhisattva, whom probably don't need to have this kind of accumulation. All they need is a tiny bit of contributing favorable condition. Then their mind of compassion and wondrous manifestation would appear. But for majority of us, without accumulation, we cannot attain that. Therefore, we really have to work on ourselves so that we can have the fruition of practice.